let's move on. Recently, it has been a pretty busy period because this is, as you know, the season for Year 1 students to declare the majors. And also for final year students to get themselves prepared to meet the challenge ahead of them. So during this period, we do talk to many students, and sometimes we are disappointed by some student telling us that, well, science is useless. Well, what they're referring to maybe just for looking for a job, right? But it is still a kind of, science is useless. This is seemingly an anti-civilization sentiment. And the worst thing is that it's developed in the university. So I just cannot believe it. So I look at pictures of my kids, and I really ask myself, what do I want them to care when they grow up later? Now, sometimes I find that teaching in a university has many things in common with teaching in kindergarten. For one thing, some of you already know calculus when you were in kindergarten. So Patrick, you don't need to worry. Just kidding. Well, but one thing in common is that we have to endlessly motivate our students to make sure that their interests come first when they are doing the study. So let me take this opportunity to talk about something which has nothing to do with job search or job hunting, but just for interest. Okay. Now let me start with a very old question that science is supposed to answer. Why is the world the way it is? Now we know that before the beginning of the modern science, there was the Aristotelian point of view. In his worldview, the world is teleological and also essentialist. That means that everything is here because it serves a purpose. What is the purpose? The purpose is to chase after perfection, according to the will of God. Now, well, that's the reason why Plato said, by studying astronomy, it makes a good person. Now, for those of you who are doing physics, how many of you are doing physics now? I'm not sure whether by studying astronomy, you think that you are becoming a better and better person. Well, some of you may, you don't. Well, others may, but I'm sure that it is for a reason different from Plato's reason. Now, well, I guess for people like Aristotle, who's interested in medicine, it's very natural for him to think that everything in this world has a place, has served a purpose. Because when you dissect a body, the question you ask is, well, what is the function of the lung? What is the function of the heart? And so on and so forth. But now we know that even in biology, we don't need this kind of teleological reasons. And the theory of evolution can do the same job. Now, so in the turn of the 17th century, in the development of modern science, symbolized by Newton, there is a completely different worldview. A worldview that doesn't need any teleological elements. And well, the same old question is still answering the same old question that why is the world the way it is? But Newton's science is more like mathematics. It's based on some axioms. Well, this is a technical term, but basically axiom just means that assumptions that you should not ask why. Now think about it this way. Everyone knows Newton's first law, right? Well, if you don't know it, that's okay. It's not your fault. But I can tell you in one word. Newton's law says that if something is left alone, then it will continue to go in straight line. If it is left alone. Now, so I imagine that one night, or maybe tonight, you dream about seeing Newton. I bet you will ask him the question, well, Mr. Newton, why would a body continue to move in a straight line? And then Mr. Newton will answer you, well, that's because it has inertia. And then you're puzzled and say, what does it mean by inertia? And Newton would say, well, inertia is the property that keeps it going in straight line. Okay, so you are even more puzzled, and you ask, why would a body continue to go in a straight line? And he said, well, that's because it has inertia. Now, it won't take you long to realize that he is not answering your question. But instead, he's just telling you that it is a fact. And to make it legitimate, he gave it a name called inertia. Now, but based on this, and together with his other assumptions, other laws, he can make predictions that can be tested experimentally. So science, from that time on, the value of science is not that on explaining the world in any teleological term, but rather the predicting power. You can predict something that can be tested experimentally. Without a test, and if you blindly believe in the axioms of science, then science will become another kind of superstition, because you blindly believe in the assumption. It sounds a little bit contradictory, superstitious in science, but that's the way it is if you ignore the predicting power of science. Now, today, we are pretty much, well, this is what we are learning from textbook. We are pretty much comfortable with the way that, or the worldview that is provided by Newtonian science. Now, and then the question is, we are learning more and more. I mean, ever since the 17th century, would all this scientific advancement force us to develop yet another worldview, just like history, just like in history, what happened in the turn of the 17th century, where the work of many people, including Copernicus and other people, found a new science which forced a new worldview that is different from the Aristotelian viewpoint. Now, in order to talk about this, I cannot stop introducing quantum mechanics to you. Now, I cannot teach quantum mechanics in 10 minutes. In fact, I only have how many minutes? Couple of minutes left. But I only want to point out something. Quantum mechanics doesn't mean a mechanics working on quantum mechanical thing, working on atoms. But it is a mathematical device that deals with the microscopic world, and is well established, really accurate, make accurate and testable predictions. Now, but in many situations, it is really anti-intuitive. I'll just talk about one example. Now, in quantum mechanics, it says that when you measure something or you look at something, it is necessary that you change the system once and for all. Now, think about how nonsense this is. Say, suppose you want to know some property, the energy of the particle, let's say, and you won't know it until you measure it. But quantum mechanics tells you that once you measure it, it changes energy. So it is different from its original energy. So you ask, is it ever possible to know the quote-unquote original energy of the system? That sounds very strange, right? Isn't science supposed to be objective? And how come by looking at something, you change it? And does it mean that human being plays a very special role in this world, that it even affects what is going on in the world? By just looking at by just having your cognitive power. Now, my partial question, answer to this question is that, well, it is not very difficult to understand why the result of when you measure something, it changes, because what we call the quantum reality may be something which is multifaceted. It may be objective there, but human being, a measuring process, is a process that casts that objective existence into a form that you can understand. So you are part of the system. You are not totally outside the system and observe it objectively. You are really part of the system, and it is your cognitive power that change the system, which appears to you. So there are many other anti-intuitive things about quantum mechanics, which I do not have time to go over. But maybe at some point, all these anti-intuitive, anti-Newtonian way of thinking may need to force us to accept or to develop yet another point of view concerning the world, which is not the same as the Newtonian world. And history may repeat itself. And whether this will happen, let's wait and see. Now, the good news is that you don't need answer to these philosophical questions to be a good scientist, to win the Nobel Prize, or to make money. And whether you're interested in it is really up to you to choose. Okay, thanks very much.